There's a new poll out showing that progressives are winning the future. Now, this Harvard University poll that I'm going to talk about is really interesting because it shows that on issues with young people, progressives, well, young people are overwhelmingly progressive. So let's dive into it. So now, data analyzed, as according to Common Dreams, by the Harvard Youth Poll, which releases survey results focused on young voters every spring, found that a clear majority are taking progressive outlooks on what John Della Volpe, director of the poll, called the Big Four. So the Big Four are political issues that respondents are asked about, and they are LGBTQ plus rights, economic inequality, climate action, and gun violence. So let's get to the results of this, because first of all, these things are all very important and are currently under assault by the right wing. Now, 62% of voters between 18 and 29 believe that the federal government on economic issues should provide residents with the basic necessities to survive. So, I mean, that's huge. That's saying the government should, provide you for food. And the government should provide you with shelter or access to shelter, help for you to get shelter so you don't end up homeless, and education, etc. So that's amazing and wonderfully progressive. All right, there's more. Just 52% believed the same back in 2018, and only 44% did just a decade ago. So, what explains the shift? I think that we can point to a lot of policies that were enacted during COVID, that were passed during COVID, during a pandemic. Look, during the pandemic, and this was again under Donald Trump, funny enough, we had stimulus checks, we had free vaccines, we had rent freezes, we had the pause of the student loan payments. All of those, I think, had impacts on people where they realized that, oh, it turns out the government can actually do stuff to help me, to help our families. Wow, it can actually be a force for good instead of something that's against us. That's huge. And now, while I think a lot of the stuff that was done during COVID was not enough, I can't say that it was nothing. That is definitely impactful. Now, let's move on from that to LGBTQ plus rights. 54% reject the idea that same-sex relationships and marriage equality are immoral, that they're morally wrong. So, again, that's a majority. That's really important because a lot of people saying that it's no longer morally wrong. That's a big culture shift, and that is quite progressive, and also directly opposed to what the right wing is doing right now. They're pushing abortion bans. They're pushing same-sex. I'm sorry, not same-sex marriage bans, not yet. But they're pushing trans bans. They're pushing bathroom bills, and they actually suffered for it when it came to the midterm elections. The most extreme right-wing candidates that were pushing all of this stuff didn't do very well. Ron DeSantis, by the way, who pushed this, he's also not doing very well in the presidential election, where actually he did fairly well in Florida as a result of that. And so it's a losing issue, especially with young people. Another losing issue is guns. 63% support stronger restrictions on access to weapons. That's no surprise, especially among young people. Gun violence kills more kids than car accidents. Now, young people, Gen Z, grew up seeing shootings in Newtown, Connecticut, Uvalde, Texas, Las Vegas, Parkland, Florida, and in dozens of other places in recent years. In fact, there's a mass shooting pretty much every other day. And so when you grow up in that environment and you hear all about, about these mass shootings all the time, you wonder, why aren't we doing anything about it? We should probably do something about it. On climate change, half of respondents said that they want the government to do more to address climate change. Now, look, these results, and this is what's really interesting about this, and this is a really basic overview of the results here, but what I want to get into is why. Turns out Gen Z is feeling quite a sense of precarity about the future and about the present. In fact, according to the Washington Post Red Sargent and Della Volpe, this generation has never felt secure personally, physically, financially. The big four all speak to the sense of precarity that young people feel about their physical safety, their economic future, their basic rights, and even the ecological stability of the planet. So young people are naturally very, very concerned about the things that are going on, and they actually want to do something about it. And they know about this because they're able to find out exactly what's going on. This is not like what it used to be, where you had, 3 TV channels, and they chose pretty much all what you heard, the newspapers. Look, when I was growing up, I wasn't worried about any of this stuff. It's because I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't aware of a lot of things. Now there's social media, there's alternative media. I mean, again, you're watching it right now, where, people are talking about these issues in a way that they never did before. In mainstream media, most of the politicians never did before. And that's because who owns mainstream media? They're owned by corporations. They are corporations. And the biggest polluters in the country, in the world even, are also the biggest donors to politicians. And they do so in the form of campaign contributions, the majority of which are used to purchase what? Ads on cable TV. So, when your entire business model relies on advertisers that, spend money to advertise on your platform, but also spend money, on campaigns, political campaigns that air ads on your network, well, you're going to be pretty wary about what the people on that network are able to talk about, are able to cover. And that's been the big problem for cable TV. Cable pundits don't like asking tough questions, don't like doing tough things because, for one, they fear losing access to politicians. They fear, getting taken off the airwaves by making donors mad or certain executives mad. And so now, independent media, they're not really concerned about that. And that's where Gen Z gets a lot of their media. And so independent media is able to give you a picture of what's really going on without having to worry about corporate sponsors. Now, that's not on the really one of the reasons here, that people know what's going on. But also, people are paying attention to what Republicans are doing in Congress. And currently, they've been attacking LGBTQ plus rights, not just in Congress, but also in state houses all across the country. They've been going after people's rights. The Supreme Court has also gone after women's rights, women, non-binary people, transgender men. They've all lost their reproductive rights under this Supreme Court. You also have extreme heat waves that have been baking the country, while again, the right-wing Republicans have continued to deny climate change because of their donors. There's been labor strikes due to terrible working conditions and low pay at hugely profitable corporations like Amazon, like Starbucks, and, these companies that, continue to get giant tax breaks thanks to Republicans are claiming that we can't afford to pay labor. Right now, we have a SAG-AFTRA strike. We have the WGA strike, the Writers Guild of America. We have all of these, strikes that are going on, all these labor actions that have happened in the last few years as a result of, again, poor working conditions created by Republicans. So, not only that, but go to guns. The right wing's blocking any movement of gun law reforms because, of course, they're wealthy NRA backers, gun manufacturers. And so all of these different reasons combined are just some of the reasons that young people are generally not interested in Republicans. Of course, there are some, young conservatives. They do exist. There are also young fascists that do exist. But I think the majority of younger people are generally very progressive and know that behind pretty much every single terrible policy is a wealthy Republican donor. Now that said, I've been focusing a lot about how this can negatively impact, Republicans, obviously, because younger people are more progressive, and Republicans are regressive. But this also presents some possible downsides for the current Democratic Party, and we pointed that, or I should say, we should point out the approval rating for President Joe Biden among young voters. Among voters under age 35, Biden has a 51% approval rating, with only 9% of those voters saying they strongly approve of the president, and more than a quarter saying that they strongly disapprove. And that's because he's not progressive enough. Joe Biden is a conservative Democrat. He's not on the progressive left. He's not a socialist. He's not a communist. He's not FDR 2.0. He's an old school corporate Democrat. That's it. He's backed by a lot of wealthy donors that also give money to Republicans. Let's be fair. And look, the reason that he was chosen as VP to President Barack Obama at the time is that he could appeal to white conservatives who were worried that Obama was too black. That he was too urban, right? And then, he won in 2020. He actually wasn't doing very well in the primary early on in 2020. He had a lot of stumbles. Bernie Sanders was actually doing quite well. And then we had a lot of Democrats drop out, endorse Joe Biden, and that, of course, allowed him to, get a lot of votes and to win Super Tuesday and shut down Bernie Sanders, who was the more progressive candidate, the one that many young people, supported over Biden. And so, look, he also, in 2020, in the general election against Donald Trump, got more moderate and conservative Democrats to vote for him than Hillary Clinton did back in 2016. He got more Republican votes, even more independent votes than Hillary Clinton. He got more male votes, than Hillary Clinton. And you could also say that, well, yeah, sure, he did all that. And he also got more progressive votes. Well, that means he was a perfect candidate, right? Well, no. Because remember, it was Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. And we currently have a two-party system that actively discourages and shuts down third parties. So in that situation, you had a lot of progressives like myself kind of held our nose and said, well, you need Trump, okay? But at the end of the day, that's only going to take you so far. Look, as Tennessee State Representative Justin Jones told NBC News earlier this month, Jones is one of the young progressive lawmakers in Tennessee who, held a protest for gun control reforms. Very progressive young man. Here's what he said. Quote, we cannot just run on what we're against. We have to run on what we're for. I've been hopeful to see the Biden campaign doing this, running for an economy where young people are not saddled with hundreds of thousands in debt, running for a livable planet, protect kids, not guns. Yeah. He also says that for Democrats to retain the support of young people who helped vote Biden into office in 2020, Jones said we must do things out of the ordinary. And understand that's what a lot of young people are looking for. And by the way, what is out of the ordinary is things that most voters actually want, which shows you how actually bad the ordinary is, how not good the status quo is when we have all of these problems. Now, do I see Joe Biden going out of the ordinary? No, I see, look, Joe Biden said it best himself. He said nothing will fundamentally change. I believe him when he says that. He's the status quo. We all know this. He's not FDR 2.0. That said, young people are the future. Young people will have the ability to change the makeup of Congress as older people, older politicians retire. Older people, or younger people, I should say, have more power as a voting bloc. and are able to flex that muscle and overtake the older generations. And I hope that they will push to elect more younger and more progressive people into power and change the makeup of Congress. And so that, we can finally take actions on these things.